What if I told you that you could sell your home in as little as a few days, maybe even the first day that it was listed, with more money in your pocket and no headache at all? It sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? But I'm here to tell you that it isn't. My name is Ryan Gillard. I'm a local realtor here in Calgary with Real Broker, and this video is all about what you have to do step by step in order to sell quickly and as easily as possible. Now, this works in any market. It could be good, bad, flat market, condos, townhouses, acreages, you name it. It works for everything. I'll take you through the entire process from preparation, listing, marketing, showings, offers, and the closing process. Now, if you're out there watching this and you could use some help, feel free to reach out. All of my information is in the written description below. You can call, text, email, or comment, and I will get back to you. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about listing and selling your home as fast as possible. Okay, step number one, the first thing that you should do is to pull your title. Now, the title is kind of like your home ownership ID, and there can be different things registered on your title. You can have your names, the mortgage is usually registered on there, utility right-of-ways, restrictive covenants, encroachment agreements are the common ones. But there can be items like pending litigation. The Canada Revenue Agency can have writs on the title. There can be liens, like say for example that you developed your basement but you didn't pay the builder. They could put a lien on your house and it'll be registered in your title. So different things like this can pop up, and it's a good idea to get it out in front of it and make sure that they won't cause any issues. Step number two, if you have a mortgage, I would call the bank and figure out how much the mortgage payout penalty is, if any. This is more of an issue in a declining market or a balanced market, where with dropping prices. At the moment, it's not such an issue just because our prices kind of skyrocketed with COVID. But when things turn around, this can be a big deal. And I recall back in like 2016 to 2020, call it, there were a lot of deals that could have been put together, but because of bank payout penalties, these sellers couldn't list their home and move on. So they can be quite substantial sometimes, or they can be pretty minor. So it's a good idea to check with the bank just to make sure how much it is. All right, moving along to preparation. So point number 4, the general idea is you want to make the home as move-in ready as possible. Point number 5, let's talk about painting the exterior of the home. Painting gives you the biggest bang for your buck, and it's not super expensive, and it can make a huge difference. So I would paint the exterior, I'd paint the trim, I'd paint the front door, basically anything that you can think of. Point number 6 is landscaping. So, simple stuff. I would cut the grass, water it, get rid of the weeds, trim the bushes, hedges, and trees. Make sure the trees aren't brushing up against the siding or the roof. A home inspector will pick that up, and it could be costly later on. I'd get rid of lawn ornaments. I'd clean up the front porch area, pressure wash the driveway, the siding, maybe new house numbers, just anything like that can help make a big difference, I think. Number 7, I would highly recommend getting a pre-home inspection done before you even list the property, and consider addressing all of the issues that pop up. It'll be cheaper for you to do them now than for the buyer to come back after home inspection, coming after you to do these items. It might be more costly. Number 8 is the roof. Now, this is a big one. So after your pre-home inspection, you'll have a good idea of how the roof is, how much life is left in it, and if you have to fix it or repair it or whatnot. So if you do decide to fix or repair it, I would have like a record of that on your kitchen counter, so all the buyers coming into the property can see that. Now, if you have issues with your roof and you don't want to fix it, which is fine, I would disclose it up front so this doesn't come back and haunt you later on. You want to disarm the buyer right away so they can't come back to you after home inspection wanting 20 grand off the price. So if you're upfront about everything, you can avoid these situations. Now, the last point I'll make about the roof is that if you decide to get a new roof, it's not going to increase the value of your home. Like say it costs you $15,000. Your home doesn't go up in value by $15,000. The buyers just assume that the roof is fine. So it's not going to add value, but it's definitely going to help deals from collapsing. Point number 9, let's talk about windows. So this is kind of the similar idea as the roof, where if you decide to put new windows in, the value of your home is not going to increase by much, but it will help prevent a deal from collapsing. Windows are super expensive, and if the buyer didn't really factor it in, then they do the home inspection to find out the windows are at their end of their life. They might back out of the transaction. I've had it before. So if you do decide to fix it, I let the buyer know. It's obviously beneficial. But if you don't, I would disclose it up front just to disarm the buyer so they can't come back to you after a home inspection, citing that the windows are shot and that the price needs to come down by a certain amount. So I get out in front of that and just let them know and disclose everything if you decide not to replace the windows. Point number 10, so if you did a pre-home inspection, they'll check the foundation for cracks, like on the outside of the home and the basement floor. This is a big one. It scares the heck out of buyers, even though most of the time it's nothing at all. Like concrete always cracks, but if you can find some cracks and have them repaired, you can potentially save yourself a transaction from falling apart. Like some buyers just freak out when they see concrete cracks, and they might get bad advice from their friends or relatives. So if you can get the home inspection done and you find any cracks, I would look at getting them repaired. It's not overly costly to do so, and it might save you a transaction. Point number 11. So moving inside the home now, you'll want to stage the home to show it at its best, obviously. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean spending thousands of dollars on professional staging and stuff like that, but there are things that you can do just to show how the buyer can live in the home versus how you live in the home. That's the general idea behind staging. So there are a bunch of items here that we'll get into. Point number 13 is decluttering. So what I would do here is I would clean out the garage, take a photo of it, and then measure it so you have it down the road, and then dump all the stuff that you don't want into the garage. Unless you're going to use like a storage bay, but if you're not going to do that, just throw it all into the garage and then use that picture that you took for the MLS photo. A lot of buyers can see past, a bunch of junk in the garage if someone's moving. So I would pre-pack anything. So if it's the middle of summer, start packing up all the winter stuff and throw it into the garage. Start emptying out the closets and stuff like that. So you want to declutter as much as possible. Point number 14 is you want to declutter the closets, clean them out so they're not overflowing. So you want to be able to see the walls and the floor. And again, you can start by dumping all the stuff in the garage if you need a place to put it. Point number 15 is you want to depersonalize the property. Now this could be a big one. So you want to take down anything that identifies you. It can be a distraction to the buyer. So when they're there in the property, you want them looking at the home itself, not all the stuff that you have on the walls, like all your travel photos. So take down anything that identifies you. So, portraits, family portraits, plaques, anything political, religious, taxidermy. You might be big into hunting, but the next buyer might be offended by it and not buy your home because there's an elk statue or something like that. So all that stuff, take down. Everything off the fridge, on top of the fridge, any kind of fridge magnets, just everything that identifies you. Again, the idea is you want the buyer to see themselves in the property, not how you live. So if you can take it down, I would do so. Now, if you need some help with staging, our team, we actually pay for a stager on behalf of our clients to help out with this process. Point number 16, you want to clean the property as best as you possibly can. The idea that I think of is that you want to clean the home as if the royal family was coming over and you want to impress them. So cleaning makes a huge difference. So I wouldn't skimp out on this. If you hate cleaning, consider hiring someone to do it for you. Point number 17, you'll want to fix, repair, or replace anything that you know of or will pop up in a home inspection later on. Home inspectors have some pretty fancy equipment that they'll find mold spores, they'll find water damage with those fancy cameras. So if you know about it, you're going to want to fix it or disclose anything you know about it. So the four big ones that I always come across are the roof, the furnace, the hot water tank, and GFCI plugs. Home inspectors are always on our cases about that sort of thing. So again, consider getting the roof looked at, have a report and give it to the buyer up front. With the furnace, I would get it serviced before you list the property and then put the report on the counter for the buyer to see or stick it right to the furnace itself. Because whenever I do a home inspection, the inspector always says, the furnace is old, budget for a new one, and the buyer freaks out. And some deals collapse over stuff like that. So I would get out in front of that so they can't come back at you for that. Same thing with the hot water tank. I'd have it looked at. Not overly expensive to get a new one, but if you have evidence that it's working fine, you can disarm those objections in advance. And the last big one that I always come across, which is super annoying because the codes have changed over time, are GFCI plugs. So those are those plugs that are located close to water sources, and they always pop up in home inspection. So I would consider hiring an electrician to come by and fix all the GFCI plugs. It's not super expensive to do this, and it can just help move the sale along without much headache. Point number 18 is you want to position the furniture in such a way that it has a good flow to it and it showcases like the fixed assets of the room. Not the easiest thing in the world to do sometimes. I know personally I'm not the best at this, but our team, we actually pay for a stager on behalf of the clients. So if you need some help, please reach out. Point number 19 are smells. The two big ones are like strong cooking odors and cigarette smoke. I'm a non-smoker, and if I walk into a home where people smoke in it, there's no way in hell I'm buying it. Like it's tough. And again, strong cooking odors, I'd find a way to eliminate them. There are machines that help with this. They're called ozonators, and you can rent them. So I'd consider doing something like that, because you will lose so many people by having like a stinky home. Point number 20. So we're moving on to the listing process itself now. And the point here is that I think you should hire a realtor that's strong on the listing end. You know, statistically, the average agent in Calgary sells like 2 to 3 homes per year. And most realtors actually spend more of their time on the buying end, not the listing end. So you'll want to find someone that's comfortable on the listing side of the business. You know, it is harder, there's more responsibility. So I would just make sure that you get someone that's comfortable listing properties and knows what to do. Point number 21, when to list the property. So in Calgary, the busiest sales months are the spring months, but there's also the most competition during that time of the year. In the colder months, there's fewer sales, but there's not as much competition. I'm a firm believer it doesn't matter when you list your property. If you do everything properly, you can sell it in any month. I actually have a more in-depth video on this topic itself, when to list your home in Calgary, which you can find right here. Point number 22, signage. So you will want to have a for sale sign out front. You know, it sounds kind of obvious, but a lot of sellers don't want them. And I think it helps prevent a sale. I've done so many transactions from sign calls. Neighbors see the sign, they tell their friends. So you're reducing your exposure if you don't have a for sale sign. You might also want to consider having those boxes out front where people can take flyers. Stuff like that. So common sense stuff here. Point number 23 is the real property report or land survey. So what this is, it's like it's a document showing the land with all the structures on it, and it's stamped by the city for compliance, meaning everything is kind of where it should be. Most of the time there's no issues with the RPR, but occasionally issues can pop up. Like if you build a garage over a utility right of way, there could be a problem, or if the fence is like 10 feet into city land, or if it's like a foot into your neighbor's land. So stuff like this, the buyer will want to know about up front, versus at the time of closing where it can blow up. So if possible, do this right away. Even before you list the property, it could be a good idea to get a real property report. So if anything has changed to the physical structure since you bought the property, like if you added a deck, if you added a fence, you'll have to get a new RPR. And again, it's better to do it right away versus having it blow up closer to possession. Point number 24 are condo documents. Probably my least favorite part of the entire business is dealing with condo management companies and getting condo documents. It's a horrible time. I've been licensed for 10 years. I don't think I've ever had like a positive experience with a management company. A lot of sellers make the mistake of waiting to get condo documents until they have a conditional sale on their property. You know, obviously they don't want to spend the money to get them in advance, which is understandable, but most of the time you're up against the clock when you're trying to get the condo documents to the buyer. And when you're rushed, the condo management companies charge you like double the amount. And they're tough to deal with. You call them, they never answer. You send them an email, you get a response back 3 days later. And the buyer might have the condo condition only open for like a few days sometimes. So it's a stressful time. And the way that you can alleviate it is by getting all the documents up front. Point number 25 is you're going to want to get professional photos, measurements, the eye guide. And while that's happening, I would also recommend shooting some videos for like the social media and YouTube and stuff like that. You know, the iPhone is great, or like the Android and stuff like that, but you're still going to want to use professional. I can tell the difference between a professional photographer and like the seller using their iPhone. You'd be shocked at how many poor photos I see on the MLS system. You know, it sounds self-explanatory, but it's not, obviously. So I would make sure that you have the best of the best, and I think it can help make a big difference. Point number 26, and probably one of the hardest steps along the way, is to create a well-written home description. These are tough, I find, and now what I mean by this is you want to disclose everything, and you want to make sure that you let them know what's been renovated, what hasn't, and if you have any issues, put it right in the description. Like, write what you want for the possession in the description as well. I would rather see stuff like that than have some run-on sentence about, how your kitchen is an open concept and it takes like the entire paragraph. That stuff doesn't concern me, but I want to know what you want for possession, what's been fixed, what hasn't, what kind of issues that you know about. That's what I would prefer to see versus like a flowery sentence about how you have a nice backsplash and granite counters and whatnot. Point number 27 is making sure everything is accurate in the MLS description. So this sounds like very obvious, but it's not. So what I mean by this is in the supplements, I'd make sure that you have the title in there, the real property report is in there. Any kind of reports, like if you've done like a pre-home inspection, put it in there. The furnace servicing report, all that stuff, put it into the supplements, making sure the HOA fee is correct. For condos, the biggest ones, I will book on the buying side, I will book a showing in say it's a 30-story condo tower, and the other agent just approves my showing, but they don't tell me where the lockbox is. I finally find it, and there's like 30 lockboxes, and half of them are unlabeled. Like, I've been there so many times, and myself and the buyers, we just leave. We can't find the property. So you're losing buyers when you do stuff like that. Where the amenities are. Like some of these condo buildings, they have like gyms and pools and stuff like that, the common areas. A lot of the time, like there's no mention of how to get to these amenity areas. So there's tons of stuff like that that you'd be shocked. Like again, the average agent sells like 2 or 3 homes, so they're not well versed in this whole process. So you want to make sure everything is available and up to date and accurate on the MLS information form. And actually, before moving on, there are a few other items here. So again, back to condos, make sure that you know where the parking stall is. Again, I show listings all the time, and they don't even mention the stall number. I'm like, how are you supposed to sell this if you don't know where the actual parking stall number is? And the legal address is different than the municipal address. So the parking stall numbers, you got to you have to make sure you know which one is which. Where the storage units are, like that can be tricky in itself. Like some of these parkades are massive, and if there's no direction how to get to the storage unit, it's going to pop up later on. Another big one is for country properties. If you're showing acreages, I can't tell you how many times I've showed an acreage, and the first words out of the buyer's mouth are, "Where are the property lines?" And the listing agent, they have no idea. I'm like, how are you supposed to sell like a 3-acre property if you have no idea where the boundaries are? So if you are selling a country property, they have like a survey on the kitchen counter and give a report to the agent that he can upload it to the MLS system. So just stuff like this. Like you'd be shocked at how many poor agents there are out there that don't do stuff like this. Point number 28, along the same lines, if you're selling a newer build and there's still warranty information, consider having the warranty information on the kitchen counter so the buyers can see it during their walk through and they can look through it. Again, for newer properties, but I think it does help out. Point number 29. So moving along to marketing of the home. So the best marketing that you can do in any market, doesn't matter if it's a recession market or a hot market, is to have the right price. The busiest day of your listing is the first day, and you want to come on the market with the best price so the buyers have urgency. You want the buyers to feel like they're going to lose out by not acting right away. And you do that by having the right price. If you decide to overprice your property, you're just helping to sell your competition. So like what happens is I try to get buyers to pick out their top 3 to 4 homes, and we see them all at once and then make an offer under like ideal circumstances. So if there are 3 to 4 homes that are similar, that are in their budget, but one is like $50,000 too high, that just helps to sell the other homes that are in that list. Now the response, I might get a response saying, you're just a realtor looking for a quick sale. I am, but so should the seller, because the faster that your home sells, the more money that you're going to get. Like if this drags on for 3, 4, 5 months, odds are you're going to have a few price reductions. and the buyers come out of the woodwork, and they, after the home's been on the market for a long time, and then you start getting like the investor types that are looking for like a low ball offer. So you want this to be done as fast as possible. And again, you're going to want to use a realtor that's strong in the listing end of the business. And in terms of pricing, I actually have a more in-depth video, which you can find right here. Point number 30 is market everywhere. So along with having the best price, there are other things that you can do as well. You can post the listing on say Facebook. You can boost that posting so people click on it and you can capture their information. Odds are they're interested in your property. You can do the same thing with Instagram. You can have a post first. You can boost that post. You could have, as you're watching this on YouTube, you can do community tours. You can do house tours on YouTube. You can capture leads that way. You can do open houses. So what I would consider doing is listing the property on a Thursday and then load up showings, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, do an open house Saturday and Sunday, or one of those days, and then look at offers on a Monday. That's one way to go about doing it. A little bit easier in a hot market, but even in a bad market, you can still follow that process. You can do neighborhood flyers. You can cold call around the area. There's a million things that you can do in terms of marketing, but the big one is obviously you want to have the best price, and then everything else is, I would say, is secondary. But there are lots of different avenues that you can do to market everywhere. Oh, and actually, before I move on, there's actually another source that might be of interest. Is you can run a Google ad. Now, to do that, you're going to want to have, obviously you want to have the listing. You want to have a landing page for that listing that connects to your website, and then you can run Google Ads is another avenue to promote your listing. So there's lots of different ways that you can go about doing this. Point number 31. So if we've marketed correctly, we should start to get a lot of showings. Now, what I would do is, again, I would list it on a Thursday and I would go away for the weekend and I'd okay every single showing. So I'd have the home vacant. All the showings are automatically approved from Thursday until Sunday. And I would look at offers on Monday. Now, obviously, if this does drag on longer than a week or so, you might be home. But what I would do is try to make every single showing work, regardless if it's convenient or not. A big thing nowadays that drives me nuts is the people working from home and their declining showings. My goodness, you lose half of the buyers by not allowing them in on the first attempt because they're out there looking at homes and they just write an offer on one. So you lose half of the buyers. They don't come back. Point number 32, if you can't leave for the weekend, don't stay for showings. You want to leave the property, either if you're living there or you want the tenant to leave as well. Sellers can talk themselves out of deals. They can be mentioning like the person across the street's involved in a biker gang or whatever. They can talk too much. They can talk themselves out of sales. Also, the buyers don't feel comfortable if you're in the property. So if you can, you're going to want to leave the property just so the buyers feel very comfortable. Is you want to be punctual with showing requests. Now this goes for the seller and for the listing agent. It's common where I'll be in the buying end of things and I'll book a showing and I won't even hear a response for like 2-3 days sometimes. Like it's crazy. Again, you can't sell your property if no one can get into it. So you're going to want to be punctual. Again, both the listing agent and the seller. Point number 34. Now this one, it's not always possible, but if the buyer comes directly to the listing agent, you're going to want to pre-qualify them just so you're not wasting your time. Pre-qualifying for motivation, financial capacity. Like if they can't get a mortgage, they shouldn't be seeing your property. So it sounds self-explanatory, but you'd be shocked at how many deals fall apart due to financing and stuff like that. So you don't want to waste your time, and you don't want to tie your property up with somebody that can't get approved, because then you've lost that first week of urgency. So pre-qualification is a big deal. Again, you want to hire a realtor that's strong on this end to try to filter out the people that might take up your time. Point number 35. So we've had a lot of showings and now offers are starting to come in. Now a point on offers, the first offer is almost always the best one. Like maybe 90% of the time. It's almost always the best one. If you get yourself into competing offer situations, obviously good for you. This could be its own video topic, but what I would recommend is you want to try to gauge the realtor and the buyer to see who is going to be the easiest person to deal with. Some buyers understand you're not buying a brand new home, that there are going to be some issues here and there, like putting in a GFCI plug, and some buyers will send you a list of 100 items. So if you have two offers and one is 427 and one is 429, but one's got a laundry list of items they want addressed, it's going to be a pain to deal with. So try to gauge the buyer and the agent if you can. Point number 36, negotiation. Now this is easier when you've done everything right. The ball is in your court. If the buyers have that sense of urgency and they feel like they're going to lose out if they don't act, then it's a lot easier to complete the sale. Now this takes time and experience to be good at this. Like, you need to sell like 100 homes to know what you're doing. So again, it's important to pick someone that's a good listing agent. Point number 37, now this is tied into negotiations, is you want to be reasonable and you want to be like respectful, communicative. Like if I send in an offer and like there's no response, like it sucks. Like, so you want to be prompt. You want to see things through their eyes. If you try to screw people over, it'll come back at you at some point during the transaction. So again, just use common sense, use a realtor that's good on the listing end, and it should make for a smoother transaction. Point number 38 are conditions. Now, there aren't too many things that you can do as a seller during this time frame, except for keep showing the property and look at backup offers. Deals do fall apart occasionally when they're conditionally sold. And again, the big items we already talked about, like the roof, the furnace, items they didn't know about, like there's mold or there's water issues. So again, if we've done everything right and disclosed or repaired, this should be a breeze, this section. So it's all about being prepared so that these issues don't blow up a deal down the road. All right, point number 39. So we're past the conditional phase now. The buyer has removed their conditions and the property is now firm sold, we call it. At this stage, both the buyer and the seller, they both pick out their own lawyers, and the listing agent will send both offices all of the paperwork that has been done. Now, the big item during this process is, given the choice, I would hire a lawyer that specializes in real estate. I know a whole bunch of them if you need someone. I can tell if I'm dealing with a lawyer that doesn't specialize in real estate because they can make the transaction more difficult. They can ask for things that are unnecessary, and they can delay and frustrate the process. Again, there are so many different lawyers out there. Like, some focus on family law, some focus on corporate litigation and stuff like that. So there's tons of different lawyers, but you want someone that does real estate transactions on a consistent basis. It makes everything easier if you do so. Now, if you are watching this video and you are thinking of selling as a for sale by owner, you'll realize that the lawyer section I just brought up, it comes into the very end of almost everything. I call a lot of for sale by owners, and I get the response quite often, "Oh, I'll just sell it myself and I'll let the lawyer do everything." Well, the lawyer has an important role in this, but it's more so to talk to the lender and the banks about getting the money and to deal with land titles and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily to sell your property. And again, if you are a for sale by owner and you're thinking about it versus hiring a realtor, I have a topic on this right here, which you can see as well. Point number 40. So the home is sold now and we're just waiting for possession. I would try to be out of the home a couple days before possession. I've had it many times where the buyer and the seller are both like in the driveway with moving trucks and they're trying to do everything on the last minute. It's a terrible experience and it really blows up. So try to be out of the home a few days before possession if you can. And lastly, point number 41. It's not necessary, but if it were me, I would consider being out again a few days before possession, and I would have it professionally cleaned at least 2 days before possession. I say 2 days before because most buyers put into their contract a pre-possession walkthrough 24 hours prior to possession. So I would have it immaculate looking the day before so that the buyer can tell their lawyer everything is good and there's no delays with the closing process. Well, that's it for my steps on how to sell quickly and easily. That was a lot to take in. And again, thank you so much for watching. If you're out there watching this and you could use some help, again, please call, text, email, or comment. All the information is in the written description below, and I would love to help you out. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.